Being motivated as a creator is everything, because if you are able to manifest the energy that you need to get up, create the things that you're creating, your books, your videos, your pieces of art, your music, the code that you write, so on and so forth, then you have a superpower to be prolific and to eventually excel in your field. Now, motivation can cover three different areas that we're going to talk about today in this video, and that's intrinsic motivation, we're going to talk about agency, and we're going to talk about setting clear goals, because each of these areas is so important for pushing through a lot of challenges that creators face. So if you are externally motivated, you're going to be comparing how many likes you have on your YouTube videos, you're going to be comparing about the people that are actually coming in to see the thing that you've created, versus having a sense of accomplishment for just creating the dang thing in itself. And you'll be able to sustain that level of output if you're doing things more because you like doing them, versus it's out there to get people to like it. There's a lot there that can stop creators in their tracks. Agency, your ability to believe in your effort, that by creating the thing, you can change the world, you can change the situation, you can change your situation, you can create abundance in your life, that the work that you put into your work matters, really can be a motivating factor or not. And you're not going to have your heart in it, and it's not going to connect with you and your intrinsic motivation. So these are all combined. And the third thing is, if you don't have clear goals about what you want to do as a creator, push this idea out, serve your personal meaningful revolution out to the world, you will spend so much time trying to figure out what to do next or what opportunities to choose that your attention's divided, your focus is divided, you don't get things done. That's not motivating, and then you fall into distraction. So that's what we're going to talk about today in the Meaningful Revolution podcast. I am your host, Shawn Buttner, and let's go. What is intrinsic motivation? It's the things that we do internally, or that we do for the sake of doing them without expecting rewards from anyone else or from the outside. So this is writing a poem because you have something inside you that wants to get out and you want to express that in something that's beautiful. It's writing the code that you know you need to do to solve a very interesting problem. Like, you've never ever worked on an AI project and you want to incorporate some open AI APIs. So that's maybe the first thing you want to try to do, is say open AI API. But you want to use a new technology for the sake of using it because it's neat. Because you want to just explore it, right? Because you're curious, or you want to learn, or you think it's fun. So these are all intrinsic motivators. Oppositely, extrinsic motivation is you're going to create a YouTube video to get 50 bajillion likes. And it's going to be a failure if it doesn't get 50 bajillion likes. And so you can have these big goals, and if they're tied to extrinsic motivations, and you release the thing and it gets 5 people that look at it at all, and one person maybe likes it, that's going to be very crushing, and you're going to struggle really being able to continue with the art over the long term. These are, if you ever have felt like, oh, the algorithm's changed and is preventing me from the success that I have, that's more of an extrinsic motivation to beat the algorithm or to reach a certain amount of people, versus I have this really great idea I want to share with the world. So that's the difference. In the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, they did a study on intrinsic motivation and creativity, and they found that creators driven by personal satisfaction and interest produce more creative work. And they get really nerdy in that. But what's really important about that, and this is my experience as a high-performance coach, is if you have a personal interest in the topic, if you are doing things because you think it'll help you grow, or it's a little bit challenging, or you just want to prove to yourself that you can do it. That's everything that you can control yourself. If it's extrinsic, again, if it's people will love me or I'll be famous if I do this thing and it doesn't happen, that's outside of your control, how people react to the art. And a lot of times we have this idea of the brooding artist that's crushed because people don't see their brilliance or the greatness of their ideas. That is anti-motivating, right? That will prevent you from doing the next project if the first one doesn't go right? And so you can control the levers with intrinsic motivation, and extrinsic, it's just out open to the world. It'll stop you every time. How can you either develop or discover your intrinsic motivations for the things that you create? Your books, again, your videos, your podcasts, your art, or your craft. That's the big question. It can be something as simple as defining your personal meaningful revolution, which linked it below in the show notes here. There's a free PDF to help you walk through that process. My personal meaningful revolution is to help creators sustain higher levels of output and quality without hurting their health and relationships in the process, sustainably again, so that they can help the most amount of people in the shortest amount of time. That clear statement of why I do what I do is very motivating for me, because it's, here's the goal, here's the thing that I can work on and try to help, and it's within my ability to put out content that might help people like this. Another way in personal development, they call this defining your why. The meaningful change I want out in the world is to help creators have a bigger impact. And what is your personal meaningful revolution? Again, if you need help, there's a link to a PDF that'll walk you through it. Just click the link, throw in your email, and I'll send it to you. Another way to discover or clarify your intrinsic motivations is to define the benefits of the thing that you're creating, right? And so I have a mentor that calls this benefit extension. So it's not that I'm creating videos and PDFs and books about knitting. It's that I'm helping people knit so they can share their passion of knitting with their family. Or I'm helping people knit so that they always have a birthday gift to give friends and family, right? So that people feel love and can show love. That there's a lot of different ways of thinking about and brainstorming and journaling these types of benefits that the people around you have. And the trick is to base it in relationships. You're talking about how it helps your family. It could be something like, I help people knit so they can sell their creations on Etsy and provide for their family, right? But these are all things that there's an action that you're helping people do, and it's something that you can then also help them in ways you can control. Third idea is to think about what makes things fun. If it's like, I love working on math problems because I love the problem-solving nature of it, I get really focused in that flow state. If it's, I really hate doing the accounting for my business, how could you make this more fun? So the question, what makes this process more fun, or what would it look like if it was more fun, can also help you find some of those intrinsic motivations. And then the thing is to brainstorm, to think about, what are the benefits for other people? How does it make it more fun? What is my mission statement or meaningful revolution statement? And that usually helps you figure it out. Check that out. Again, the PDF below in the notes. And that's why intrinsic motivation is helpful and why you need it. The second thing is the role of agency in sustaining your motivation, right? There is self-determination theory found in psychology, and essentially it's the more you feel control of your projects, the more likely you are to feel happy about it. In leadership, there's this saying that the people follow what they create. Your best job as a leader is, we're facing this problem, getting your team to rally around, how do we solve it? everyone contributes or buys into that process because they helped co-create the solution, people will be more motivated to follow through and not complain about it because they co-created, right? And that co-creation is having a sense of control over the actual output, right? And if you are a YouTuber or an author, you have full control over your creative output. And that's one of the benefits of doing that particular type of job, is that you have that type of control. So how do you increase your autonomy in your creative work, right? You can create personal goals. You can create a flexible environment for yourself. I think, again, defining your why or getting into your meaningful revolution statement is very helpful in grounding you in why you're doing this, right? And why it's important. We'll go into in the next point too to set intrinsic goals. The lesson here is, and his reflection on it is, I should have set many milestones, because even though this was the best launch that I have done for anything in my business, and it beats combined revenue for everything else behind it, I didn't have these little mini gates to show that I was progressing and that were in service to the big crazy goal that probably was never going to happen anyways, that just set him up to feel disappointed. And what I love about that particular reflection is that the agency is, I set one big stick in the ground and I could have controlled how my expectation by setting smaller goals along the way if these mini metrics are being hit, and feeling in control of that process. So what can you do in your creative endeavor that is maybe breaking down a big goal into smaller goals so you feel that you have a little bit of control over the outcome and process as you're going through? I think that's important. All right, the third idea is to set very clear goals, right? When you have a very clear and specific goal, it becomes very clear and specific what you have to do next. And I think that's such an important statement, because once you are clear what you have to do next, that's a lot of brain power that you're freeing up to actually do the things and to not spin on, I could be doing, I have a coaching business, I could be running a community. It can get to be a lot. But if you're like, no, I have this goal, I'm going to focus on my coaching business, I'm going to focus on the podcast. Those are the two big goals for this year. I want to grow it by 10% each month. And then each month I'm going to grow it by doing this much marketing, having these many offers. You slowly break it down. It's much more manageable. It's much easier to section off things into smaller goals like we were talking about before. And it's a great motivator, right? You have a checklist now too, right? You never underestimate the motivating power of a checklist getting smaller. Humans love this. It's amazing how being able to think about a big goal, to break it down in those clear steps, again, opens up that mental space to really focus on creating the things, and is motivating as you see that big list slowly get knocked down. Again, part of it is functionally decomposing the goal into smaller goals into specific tasks. There's a framework for that. A lot of people, especially if you come from corporate, love the SMART goals framework. I have a love-hate relationship with SMART goals. I think they can be really good at getting very clear on the next steps. The bigger the idea, and the more abstract the idea, and the more it's outside of what you've already done, the harder SMART goals get to manage, in my particular opinion. But it's a great framework of being specific, measurable, attainable, repeatable, and timely, I think. You can Google it. It's so many people do videos on SMART goals, but it's important. So it's important to have that. It's important to have challenging goals, right? If for your business, all you had to do for 8 hours a day is sit in front of a computer and click a button as many times as possible, you would eventually, after probably half a day, die of boredom. Having things that are pushing your skills, helping you learn, helping you think and problem solve are going to be a lot more rewarding and a lot more motivating than doing something you've done over and over again. And a very simple fix for this is to constantly be thinking, like, how can I tweak this process to be a little bit more effective? This is where I nerd out about everything in my business. It's what I nerded out when I was in tech, in trying to find little improvements in a process you've done a million times. Can be highly rewarding, keep it really relevant, keep it a little bit novel, keep you learning so that you don't lose interest or, in the worst case, actually die of boredom. That's setting goals in this very quick part of the podcast. If we're talking about motivation, there's a couple of things that also tend to happen to creators that prevent them from feeling motivated, right? And it could be burnout, right? Burnout happens when you have unsustainable habits that you don't think you can control that are hurting your health and preventing you from having any types of relationships. If you've ever met someone that's been insanely successful in business or very successful on a YouTube channel or very successful as an author, but they're not happy, it's usually because they've been going really hard for the last 5 years, blood, sweat, toil, all of that stuff, and they haven't caught a break, they haven't had a chance to share it with people, or they've lost the ability to go and do the things out in the world that they used to be able to do, right? And so you don't want to be that. You want to be constantly thinking, like, how can I continue to improve? How can I continue to create? How can I continue to do the things that I do without destroying my heart by eating bad food, by lack of sleep, by never seeing the sun, those types of things. Being exhausted because you're not taking care of yourself is something in your control that you can control that we need to be paying more attention to so you don't burn out, right? So that's burnout. When you hit writer's block, that could be a sign of burnout. That could be a sign of not being clear, or that you're not doing something that's super engaging. So finding your inspiration through podcasts like this, through reading books, through talking and getting into community can be really super helpful facing creative blocks. Or if you don't have consistent motivation, sometimes that's why you hire a coach. Or sometimes that's why you join a community. Finally, this is all things that we need to be self-aware about. So you need to understand yourself, how you're working, how you're feeling. Are you actually hurting relationships and your health? Or do you have the right balance to where you're pushing that as far as you can in a sustainable way? It's about overcoming roadblocks, sometimes things that throw us off or get us into that writer's block or fluctuate in our motivation is just life happening. And so do you have the set of habits? Do you have a set of tools? Do you have a set of support around you to help you be resilient in those moments, or to help you adapt to new realities, right? If you've been working on an idea for 3 years because you're writing a book and the whole world changes and that idea is no longer relevant, how can you adapt or shift or pivot in order to make it happen? Today we talked about intrinsic motivation, we talked about agency, we talked about setting goals. I'd love for you to reflect on your own motivation, right? What are your intrinsic motivators for doing your craft and your art? What do you have control over in your life to have more of that, or to do it at a higher level, or to increase the impact you have of it? And then goal setting. What are your very clear goals, or where are areas in your life where you're not clear what to do next? And what goals could you set in place to help you get clear on those next steps, right? I'd love for you to share your experiences or tips by replying to or sending an email to support@ShawnButtner.com to share this. We'll share whatever you're doing on your motivation. If you need help, we could talk about setting up a call as a coach, but just email me at support@ShawnButtner.com to share your experiences and tips keeping motivated. I'd love to thank you for tuning in to the Meaningful Revolution podcast. Please, if you haven't yet, subscribe on Apple Podcasts, which is the thing that helps the most, or your favorite podcast app. Leave a review on Apple Podcasts if you would, because that helps the show out the most. Share this episode with 2 or 3 fellow creators to help get the word out if you enjoyed this episode. And with that, we'll see you guys next time on the Meaningful Revolution podcast.